Everybody's talking a lot about OpenAI and ChatGPT today, so I thought I'd put together a quick video on the suite of OpenAI APIs and some possible use cases on the trading desk. So we are going to explore a few use cases using OpenAI's APIs. We're going to start with some voice transcription and insertion into a form, then some natural language database querying, then some text summarization, and then finally, what I think is potentially the most exciting application, text embedding and semantic search. One potential use case integrating OpenAI's text completion could be speeding up the accurate capturing of client interest by salespeople. So I'll quickly walk through the steps of how we might do that. I'll record using OpenAI's Whisper. We'll then transcribe using OpenAI's text completion. We'll then analyze it using OpenAI's text completion along with some other Python libraries, and then we'll fill the form in. Client interest, desk is USHY. The client is Wellington, and they are a buyer of 3 million of security IRM 5% 071532 at a price of 82.5. It is a hard target and notes likes the name and will likely buy more next week. So here you can see it didn't pick up the desk, but that's fine. We can just go in here, say US high yield, so you can see that you can always go in there if there have been some mistakes, and you can just change as appropriate depending on whether the transcription was accurate or not. But you get the idea. This can be very powerful, make it very simple for salespeople to easily add client interest on the go and not have to worry about any kind of manual input once you get off the phone. Something else you can do is you can also query. We can say return the top 10 accounts in the last 3 months. So you can query something like this, just in case you didn't have a component that would do that, and we can fetch that. It will go away. Using OpenAI, it will use the completion API, convert it into SQL, and then make the backend call. And you can see here, these are the top 10 accounts in the last 3 months. And just to show you down here actually what's happened, we can actually see the query that we generated. So we've gone from this natural language query to this SQL statement, which has then made the backend call and has returned the correct data. We can do that again. We can try a different one. So why don't we say, what are the top 10 bonds by volume in the last week? And we can see we should get the top 10 bonds. And here we see the top 10 bonds by volume in the last week. And you can see what's interesting here is the way that we've set things up. It returns the identifier, the description, and the sum that we were requesting, along with the data that we're requesting. So you can see it's really powerful. So you don't necessarily need to have a number of different components doing these things. You could have one almost kind of assistant on your desk that could then make direct calls to your backend servers to return the data that you want. The next thing I wanted to show now was around summarization. So I think this could be really interesting for research analysts or for traders and salespeople as well. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go to the FOMC and we're going to take the last FOMC press conference. So you can see this was 43 minutes long. And what I'm going to do is we're going to copy that. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to put it into here as our source. This can take audio, it can take text files, it can basically take any file type that has some data that needs to be summarized. In this instance, I think which is quite interesting is to take a video to audio, to transcribe, to summarize. And that's what we're going to do now. So Might just take a little bit of time. And here we go. So here is that 45 minutes condensed down into a couple of paragraphs, which is really, really, I think, quite powerful. The next thing I'd like to do is we'll clear this, and what I'd now like to do is how about we take an earnings call transcript. So here we'll take city trends, and we'll go back, and we're going to give it a transcript. So here it's just parsing pure text, and there you go. Very, very quickly you get a return. You can also query things further, and this is where I think you can get some really interesting interactivity. So why don't we say something like extract all financial numbers and what they represent from the following text. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to resubmit this to the chat completion API, and let's see what it gives us. And there we go. So it goes into the text and it actually strips out the numbers. And you could imagine if this was a much longer piece of text, you could go into a very lengthy transcript. You can get it condensed down into a handful of paragraphs and then further summarize just the numbers that you could, quickly copy and paste and stick it on a message or on a Bloomberg. So I think there's some really exciting things that are now feasible that weren't even possible 6 months ago, that with the release of OpenAI's ChatGPT API and Whisper, it really gives a potential for some really interesting real-time data analytics too. The last component that I wanted to highlight was text embeddings. What we're doing here is we're measuring the relatedness of text strings. And embeddings are commonly used for search or clusterings or recommendations, anomaly detections, sometimes diversity measurements or classification. And what we're going to do here is we are going to query one of my news databases, and we are going to put in a free text search. So if we say something like, what stocks are moving, and you can see what it's done is it's returned a list of headlines, of news headlines, all with something in the context of stocks moving. So here you can see, bank stocks worth buying. These 3 stocks could raise higher. So it's not just a lexical search. So a lexical search is where we're just looking for specific words in the text strings. What we're doing here is we're doing a semantic search, which actually understands the meaning. And because we have vectorized all of these headlines, and we also vectorize the query using cosine similarity, we can find the headlines that are nearest to this particular query. So it really is quite powerful. So we can do another one, like, why don't we try, is there any automotive news? Is there any news in automotive? And we can do a similar search here. And with it being a semantic search, it actually understands the context. It understands automotive, so it should pick up the automotive stocks, even if it doesn't have automotive or anything like that in the headline. Yeah, so here you can see GM, we've got Ford, Toyota, Rivian, something on electric vehicles, Jeep Wrangler. So you see it's extremely powerful in that you no longer need to be specific in your query. You can make contextual queries, and it can query news. Now, we don't just have to stop at news searches. We can also put in things like offering memorandums. You can put in any number of text documents, and provided that you have vectorized the words or sentences or paragraphs, you'll be able to do some extremely efficient searches across dozens or hundreds of documents. maybe one last one. Is there any news on Tesla? You can look for individual companies. And here you can select, and you can go immediately to the headline. It's all here, and it's extremely easy for you to get to the news or indeed anything that's important to you. And that wraps this up on some possible use cases for the new OpenAI API. And I'm sure that you can think of many other possibilities, but you can see here that it can be extremely useful. Thanks very much for listening. If you would like to discuss a demo or how we could work with you, then please get in touch. Thanks for your time.